My name is Ralph Smith, and I'm a co-founder and a writer for fedsmith.com. And the purpose of the video today, this is the number, I don't know how many at this point, in a series of videos on what President Trump calls the Workforce Optimization Initiative. Perhaps more accurately, it's the Workforce Reduction Initiative, because that's what's going on. And as far as most of our viewers are concerned, that's probably the most important thing, or the thing of immediate concern for them. So how's it going? Is it successful, unsuccessful? How many people are affected? What's happened and what's happening next? To start with, what's happened? Deferred resignation was the initial step. It came to a surprise, as a surprise for a lot of people that hadn't been expecting it, because there hadn't really been any publicity about it. The administration indicated, or OPM at least, which is obviously part of the administration, had estimated perhaps 5 to 10% of the workforce would take it. It was viewed as being a generous offer, and along with the offer came notification that other things would be happening fairly soon. RIFs, furloughs, basic reductions in force in one way or another. It started with DEI. A lot of DEI people were put on administrative leave, positions being terminated. But that was just the starting point. It was hardly the finish of it all. The deferred resignation didn't go as well, or at least it didn't hit the targets that the government thought it might hit, and probably for a couple of reasons. One is that they may have underestimated the strong reaction of the unions and other organizations, basically saying if you take this offer, you're buying into something that may not work out to your benefit. They argued it was unfair, illegal, not thought out, no legal basis for it. And if you do it, you might find yourself being without a job and without having any money. So we don't have any idea how many people were affected by these arguments. And the unions were in a consortium filing a lawsuit with a judge in the state of Massachusetts. So the resignation program was delayed. It gave people an extra several days to sign up, and that seemed to help in the sense that it went from about 50,000 until the end of the temporary restraining order. So it got up to maybe 76 or 77,000 people, still less than the 5 to 10% that the government had estimated may take advantage of the program. So 76,000 is not a small number, but there's further to go. Probably the best estimate is the government may be shooting for a reduction of, say, 400,000 to 500,000 people. I haven't seen any estimates on what their overall goal is. The workforce optimization program is supposed to make the government run more efficiently. Of course, in conjunction with this, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, is going into a lot of agencies and finding a lot of stuff, getting publicity on how money is being spent that's government money for programs around the world. Sometimes the programs are embarrassing, not the kind of thing you'd want your government funding. Sometimes the government is funding both sides of an issue. Sometimes it's just forwarding or pressing, introducing social issues that are active in this country into other countries that don't have those kinds of initiatives. And whether they wanted them or not, the government was paying for some of the things that were now happening, presumably at our expense, in those Central, South American, Mideastern countries. So deferred resignation has come and gone. The lawsuit filed by the unions failed. And perhaps that was a surprise to a lot of people, perhaps to the unions. But the judge said that they didn't have standing. And perhaps just as important, there's a statutory provision for a union that has a labor relations issue under the Civil Service Reform Act. They don't go directly into court. There's a statutory process. In this case, it would have been going to the Federal Labor Relations Authority. They didn't do that. And he said they had no direct interest in the program, so they had no standing. In any event, he lifted the temporary restraining order, and OPM ended the deferred resignation within a short time after it was lifted. So that's where we stand now on that. But that's not the end of the workforce optimization program by any means. Just this week, probationary employees started getting termination notices in a number of agencies. That's not a surprise. We did a video a couple of weeks ago now on probationary employees, who they are, why they were being potentially targeted, because it was obvious that was going to happen. A probationary employee doesn't have the same appeal rights. They're typically younger because they're just starting out in a federal career. Most of them have probably been employed for less than a year, in some cases less than 2 years, depending upon the agency and the position. But at any one time, there may be as many as 250,000 or so probationary employees. And yesterday, in various reports, a number of agencies have indicated that people in probationary jobs were being terminated. These agencies included Department of Energy, Education Department, OPM, Department of Veterans Affairs, SBA, Small Business Administration, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the GSA, General Services Administration. I'm sure there were others, but those are some of the ones that were being reported as of late yesterday afternoon as having undertaken an effort to terminate, some cases, several thousand probationary employees, depending on the agency, how many they had, that kind of thing. Part of the problem from an agency standpoint, of course, is the federal government workforce is older than it is in most companies. For a variety of reasons I won't get into here, but we know that's the case. And the number of younger employees, of course, is even less because it's an older workforce. So a lot of these folks are in their 20s, just starting out in the government service. So that means for the future, there's going to be more people eligible to retire and fewer people coming up right behind them gaining experience in government. But that's not an unknown factor. It's a reality, and that's what agencies will be dealing with in the fairly near future as this program progresses. Upcoming portions of the plan aren't a secret. We know, for example, Schedule F, or as it's now called, policy career, which sounds kind of hard to say. It sounds a little clunky. Schedule F is neat, clean, easy. Everybody knows what it means, so I'll just call it Schedule F. OPM has asked for agencies to identify people in policy-making positions. And it could be those that influence policy, those that discuss policy, those that argue in favor of an agency's policy. It's a fairly broad definition. We don't know how many people are in these positions. It could be as many as at least 50,000, maybe it's 150,000. Now, the fact that you're identified as a Schedule F employee doesn't mean you're going to be terminated. You will still be a career employee, but you'll be in a different category of career employee. You won't have the same appeal rights. It's not a program that requires you to be pledging your loyalty to the president. What it does require is that you work to establish, to implement, successfully implement the administration's goals and objectives. If you don't, it would be a lot easier to fire you. In the first Trump administration, there was a lot of feeling. We've identified in articles on FedSmith what some of these items were that created issues for the administration, where they felt like there was a deep state working against them. Some federal employees would say, in effect, I was here before you won the election. I'll be here after your term is over. I've been running this program. I know how it works. I know what makes it successful. I'm not going to take steps to terminate or to damage this program. I'm going to do what I've always done. In effect, it was a passive-aggressive approach in some cases to not implementing the workforce objectives of the administration. So if that happens, if you put in Schedule F, if that goes through, the challenges to it, if they fail, I don't know what will happen. You could be terminated, and you won't have very many appeal rights if that happens. OPM is also introducing large-scale RIFs. Some agencies may see a 50 or 60% reduction in the workforce. Some agencies may be eliminated altogether. It depends on if there's a statutory basis for the agency, a statutory basis for divisions or organizations within the agency. It all depends on the particular circumstances. But we know the rifts are coming as the agencies try to scale down the size of the workforce and the missions that they're accomplishing on behalf of the taxpayer. And then hiring restrictions. They've also implemented restrictions, as we outlined in a recent video on the workforce optimization executive order that came out, so that every 4 employees who leave, an agency can hire 1 employee to replace them. So that's where we stand. We don't know how many people will be affected by this ultimately. There's a good chance it may be as many as 400, even 500,000 people. Not the first time this has happened. Some who've been around a while may remember under the Clinton administration, there was an initiative spearheaded by, at the time, Vice President Al Gore, and they reduced about 300,000 people. By reduced, I mean that many people left government service. It was done over a longer period of time. It was done with less acrimony. Clinton was a Democrat. The unions generally favored Democrats in their policies, so they didn't have some of the antagonism that's coming toward the Trump administration from the federal employee unions, which represent about 26% of the workforce. So that was successful. Clinton got credit for it. That's probably not what his administration is remembered for, as much as his affair with a White House intern seems to overshadow other accomplishments that he had. But it has happened before. It's happening now. And unfortunately, for federal employees, that makes it a fairly unpleasant place to work. So that's unfortunate, but there's probably no way around it. People who are worried about being riffed, being furloughed, being terminated for any reason is always stressful. That comes out in the workplace. I suspect the workplace counselors, if there's any left, will certainly be busy dealing with the stress and frustration that the federal workforce is feeling now. As the program advances, we'll be writing articles on FedSmith. We'll be doing these videos to try to keep you advised and informed and help you make the decision that's best for you at that particular time based on your particular circumstances. Thank you for watching. We hope that everything works out the best as possible for you. Thank you.